Hello and welcome to our recorded breakthrough session.
Hello.
I would love to hear what it is that you want to work in this session. What challenge are you facing?
Really on a foundational level, I'm getting stuck on a lot of hooks of like self-doubt, fighting against myself, or like fighting against perceived others. um, and it's just a place that I've found to be like unproductive in like when I'm in a place where I'm doing the things that are building towards what I want, I'm in a place of like deeper embodiment and like nourishment, but I still get caught on these like hooks, whether it's like particular things with self-doubt around building my coaching business and like I'm not good enough, or like people will have these particular criticisms and how will I deal with that, blah blah blah, blah. Or just the everyday social media things where it's just like there's the big hooks of like um having to know so much about every social issue and everything like that. And it's like I'm educated on these things and I value having a perspective, but it's like my brain's fried at this point. So I'm just trying to figure out how to gracefully unhook, is at least a part of where I'm at right now.
Okay,
Unhook.
so let's go ahead.
Yeah, last thing I was gonna say was just like unhook from like fight and get into a more nourishing. It's definitely like a fight type trauma response, I'd say. At least I
Hmm.
think that's how I conceptualize it.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got this thing that you're labeling consciously as a trauma response of like fight, and we often talk about that: fight, flight, freeze, fawn, the 4 F's of trauma responses. So, fight being one of those, it's like very tempting to label it as a trauma response, and like, yourself, so what you've been through and how you handled it and how it feels still in your body, those pieces. So like intelligence behind that label too, I want to say.
Yeah.
So, but then there's this like just feeling this being stuck on these hooks of like self-doubt and like that need to fight, that like there is some entity to fight with. um and I love that you said perceived others.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
tells me you're dialed in, like that there is kind of no one else. So yeah.
Yeah. It's like I've been catching myself recently, and it's like, who are you fighting with right now? It's like I'll play out a fight in my head and I'm like, who is actually actively bringing this? And I'm like, there's no one actually there right now.
Okay, I love this because um, it just tackles one of my favorite topics, because it's like, who are you fighting with? There's no one there right now, right? Like, there's actually no one who's fighting with me. And I think that often that'll lead us to be like, let me write off this fight. Let me just like write it off and like stop fighting it. But I think that actually, when there's no one there fighting with us, the fact that we're fighting is actually much more pertinent, like much more significant.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that like it's easy when there's someone to fight with to say that, like, to know that the fight is really about the circumstance, or to believe that it's about the circumstance. But when there's fight there without circumstance, like fight trying to create circumstance, it's actually an indication that there's some value in fight itself, like independent of circumstance. So it's like a circumstance can kind of fool us into not realizing that the fight is the center of it, or the meaningful piece.
Yeah. I guess it's interesting because I puzzle with it because like I'm at this point where like I'm recognizing this as a piece of me that's been like sort of overfed, and I'm like this, and I was stuck in it yesterday. um and I was just like puzzling with it, and it's like I'm trying to like figure out how to like nourish and nurture this part of me that's like needing something that it's not getting, because I think that's where the fighting's coming from. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. And it's like high level shit. That's like a high level response, um, which only makes this all the more difficult that you can't resolve it because you're applying like insanely high level intellect and like spiritual awareness to it.
I have put a lot of work into that.
Yeah. And it's paid off. Like it's very clear. And that's what makes um, these issues like for us as practitioners, we're like, I should have this figured out, right? Like I should be able to do this, you know, and that's where the shoulds and the shame and the spiral comes in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're in that or not, but you know, it
Oh
and
yeah.
that's what I'll notice. Like, I mean, I'm just feeling like how upright you are, like, and it's like you say, oh yeah, to the spiral, but it's almost like there's like still a part of you that's apart from that spiral, even if you're the most stuck in it that you've ever been.
Oh, I like hearing you say that, 'cause then I can like feel that like upright part. Like I went and like I get back on my cushion. It's interesting. It felt good on a level because I can feel the part that's upright, but then I can really feel the part that's not, and that's like easily like tumbled and 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 just like ouchy.
Yeah, totally, totally. Okay. Well, I love that you can feel both of those pieces. And then, yeah, and then so you're saying like, I love the feeding and nourishment language that you're using here too, that like this fighting piece is a piece that's like overfed, right? That like, it's like, you know, when you run away from something that you think maybe was going to kill you, like you're not dead, right? So it's like it's hard to say that it wasn't going to kill you because like you ran away and you survived. So it's like creating that link between that behavior. So it's like if you've been nourished and you've been in a pattern of fighting, it's like easy to say that the nourishment comes from the fighting.
Oh yeah, hold on, let me see what that was. Oh. Ah, yeah, that hit something. That hit something. Oh. Yeah, yeah. There's part of me that feels like I can give up fighting so hard, but then there's part of me that feels like I have some type of like moral, spiritual debt that I need to like pay for through fighting.
Gosh, and like, isn't that just in the water right now? Like, I mean, I feel
Yeah,
like that's the message we're all really being bombarded with these days that, like, you know, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. Like, if you're not gonna fight, like, do you even care? Yeah, I have this sticky note on my desk where I said, don't confuse outrage for caring.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's, like, yeah, an inherently traumatized sort of response, to be in like a chronic emotional activation.
Yeah, and it's almost like, and that's why I say this nourishment language is so valuable because it's like not a nourished state. It's a state of expending energy, right? It's not contentment and it's not intake like receiving. It's not filling a filling state. It's like a state of energy expenditure.
Yeah. Yeah, I get the sense of like generations of like ancestors behind me. It's like, everybody put your damn swords down. We don't need to hug it out just yet. We'll get our way there. But it's like, just put it down. Put it down. I see you, Grandpa. I see you. I know you want to put the sword down. Put it down. You'll be okay. I'm with you. We're in this together.
Mm. Yeah, and actually I'd love to invite you to talk to Grandpa about that. Like what is it that fighting gives you? Like what is so valuable about it?
Protection. Oh. Oh. Yeah, it's like I can perceive like the super tiny seed of tenderness just hanging out deep in Grandpa's center. That's like it's still there. It's still in pristine condition. It can be like planted and watered and nurtured and given sunlight and things, but it's being protected very, very fiercely.
So I'm hearing that the protection worked.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the protection worked, and now it's time to shift. I think I perceive.
What makes now the time to shift?
No, because fighting's not working anymore. My brain and body can't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. What's
Like,
unsustainable does not sustain.
yeah, the ironic part is that, fighting this fight mode that I'm in has made me less capable of, quote unquote fighting in service of things that I would want to fight for, even though I wouldn't necessarily categorize it always as a fight or being in fight mode, I guess. There's obviously some sort of distinctions I'm kind of playing with here, but it's like the fight mode is impeding my ability to, in what would be a healthy way, fight in service of something.
Yeah. I mean, if we even just bring it right back to that energy expenditure thing, like if you're spending energy fighting ghosts that aren't really there, then like the energy expenditure to like whether it's a fight energy expenditure or a love energy expenditure or like a shaping energy expenditure, you have less energy for that.
Yeah, yeah. Spending a lot of time and energy fighting ghosts.
Yeah. Well, and it's almost like I want to acknowledge that like that's the habit, that like fighting is the habit, so it's like you actually don't have an experience of something other than fighting working.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm reflecting on my experiences now because it's like, I've had plenty of like I've had like breakthrough moments and then like also like healing sort of trajectories and things. Um, and it has taken work to get to places where, I'm not fighting so constantly. Um, but this is the last part that's still just like hooked and like pulling and draining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so let's go back to that place where like fighting isn't the tool anymore. And this is like one of my favorite little like things to drop, little bombs to drop on people, is like I asked, what does fighting give you? And you said protection. And when I hear protection, the like complement to protection is threat. So like once you transcend into a place where there's not a threat, Like fighting isn't providing protection anymore. Like protecting isn't where safety lies anymore.
Oh, that's not. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Oh, yeah, it's such a limited frame of maneuvers. It's like I wanted. It's like I know I can dance differently. It's just like I just need to put those ones away. Put those dance moves away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and knowing that you have all this like ancestral muscle memory. I also feel it behind me. I love that you said that. That like ancestral muscle memory of like fighting being the thing. But like really, why was grandpa protecting that seed? Other than to pass it on to you for when there's not a threat to the seed anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that shit.
So good.
Yeah, it's one of those things that helps me to like feel like a spiritual sense of love with ancestors, even if they were difficult ones or painful ones, like when they're in this life. It's like, oh, like I can feel my heartbreak for like the like overprotected, like, angry, person. And then there's this like gift of like, my heart is still like sensitive and my belly's still open enough to be able to be like, oh, I can transform and grow because like you carried and passed it on doing the best you could,
Yeah. Ooh, that's hitting my throat somehow.
having to live in it. Yeah. Yeah. Throat. Huh. Yeah. Because it feels like I don't know. I don't know. There's something needing to be given voice there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I
Oh,
love.
this is good. This is good.
Yeah, you liking it? You vibing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I think of the value of fighting, like I think of fighting as a form of resistance, right? Like what is unacceptable, I need to change what is, right? So I'm going to resist or fight or like force. Yeah. And resistance is actually a preservative force, right? Like if we talk like in terms of physics,
Yeah. I'm with you.
the reason I can stand up is because of resistance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like one of these necessary forces. And so when we think of like resistance and we're like, oh, I want to move beyond resistance, I like, oh, I can just like get rid of resistance, like, like try working in a frictionless vacuum actually. Like it will be fun.
No, no. Maybe as an experiment for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's not like a life without resistance is a life without friction, and like friction, yeah, is a source of like um conflict, but it's a source of heat and it's a source of pleasure, it's a source of sensation. So it's like resistance is actually like this place where it's a relational component.
Yeah, yeah. And as you're talking about it, it's also something for me where it's like I recognize that like I don't want to get rid of my like fight response because you can't, because it's a healthy adaptive thing. It's just like I need to retreat for a little bit from this war I've been fighting. And it's like, and that's like, that's a healthy maneuver. It's like retreat, pull back, regroup, nourish, and then from a more composed place, what from a healthier place, choose how to employ that skill set.
Yeah, and I think that that healthy place is a place that has a ton of gratitude and recognition for the value of the fight, like, and for the spoils of war that you've gone to, that like recognizing what fight has brought to you is like part of the integration that like lets it flip over.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah. Not, because I can get into the like fighting against my fight response, and that doesn't help. That just adds a layer of like aversion. And so like my like gentle mindfulness practice actually becomes a violent, like, get rid of that, pull away from that as harshly as you can, bad, bad, bad. And it's like, oh no, just notice, gently release the grip, reorient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And also like it's hard to parse as you're letting it go, because you are letting it go. Like I can feel that that's already happening. Like the conversation that you're in with it is like such a high level conversation that it's like, if we didn't have this session, if you never worked it, like if like it's on its way out, and you're like part of it being on its way out already.
Oh, I like hearing that. That brings a smile to my face.
Yeah. And yeah, so it's transitioning out, and like seeing that it's transitioning out is really important. And like I think when you talk about like readjusting or releasing the grip, like if you're talking about an ancestral grip here, like you're talking about a hand that has been clenched not for an hour, but for generations. Right? And then think about a tightly clenched fist for 1 hour and how that would feel to release. Like, like paralyzed and painful and like achy as it creaks open, like way more painful than holding the fist. And like almost like if you were unclenching that fist from after an hour, there would be a lot of like clenching and unclenching to like loosen those up. So like almost like you going into that fight is like clenching the fist to help that loosening occur.
Damn, poor guys.
They fought for your ability to see it that way.
Oh, I love them.
Mm.
Whew.
How's it
You're
feel?
good at this.
Thank
You're good at
you.
this. Really, really natural. Thank you. I've done a decent amount of healing work in my time, and this was really nice. This happened, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. How would you feel? Do you want a little more, or?
Yeah, I'm up to keep going.
So I've got kind of one little last bit, which is like, again, like bringing it down to just the raw energetic element of this, is that like fighting is and we'll say it's a waste of energy sometimes, but what it is it's an expenditure of energy. And just like there's such thing as too little energy, there's such thing as too much energy. And so like too little energy wants nourishment, and too much energy wants a channel to spend that energy. So this fighting ghosts that you're doing is like a sign that there's like free energy that like doesn't have another place to go. And so like I love I'm just like I'm gonna just completely baldly project onto you that like you're trying to build your coaching thing, and like I've been doing that for 3 years or whatever, and like that like you see a post and you're like, oh, they're wrong, I'm gonna like comment this, and I'm gonna like fight them in the comments section, and then fight all the people who fight me in the comments section. And like
I wouldn't know anything about that.
yeah,
No, yeah, that sounds like both sometimes a social media experience, sometimes a grad school experience. That sometimes like it's like, Western psych can just be so lacking in wisdom. And it's, don't get me wrong, like Western psych does some beautiful things and has learned how to and has helped contribute to our knowledge of helping people heal in certain ways. But
yeah, and only one very specific, very sick context.
yeah, and lacking deep awareness of that context. Yeah, so that definitely resonates, and that really is where a lot of figuring out how to channel that energy. Like I've been meditating more lately, and there's like a rising sort of energy that feels like a natural cultivation into like a voice in terms of like how I'll be starting my business and trying to reach people, trying to put myself out there in a way that's an extension of an invitation, like an open hand that's like, hey, I'm a landing place, come hang out, help you build emotional resource, and then I'll help you connect that to another friend or something in your network, and then you can build it and you have the tools, you don't need me anymore, go have fun.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like if that open hand like suddenly turns into a fist to punch someone else and then like opens back up, you're like, I don't know. Am I gonna grab that hand?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel why you would want to like spend this energy in a new way. And so the suggestion or the offer here is like there's the fight tendency, and it's like to see that like, or to make a commitment that like I'm only going to spend my energy where it's going to return to me specifically. And it feels speaking of Western psychology, it feels like individualistic, or it feels like kind of like not really community oriented.
Yeah.
But the place you're in right now is like the place of becoming the ground of the community, like you were saying, like that open,
Yeah.
like a space of invitation. So it's almost like it's like anywhere you go is a rejection of being that ground that's still. So it's like all the energy needs to like circulate back to you, because you're the thing that's like growing up and creating the invitation, and like you're becoming a forest full of resources. So it's like
Yeah.
everything that feeds you is feeding everyone else.
Yeah, and I think that the shift is that before it was like I could sense stagnant energy and I would react by trying to fight it to like make shit happen, to like break shit up. And that wasn't necessarily bad, like, but it's like now I think there's like an adultification headline, just coming out of Saturn return. And so it's like, this is like the shift into adulthood where it's like, oh, okay, I can shift how energy moves in a much more different and sustainable way. Um, and that does create that sort of spiritual ecology of yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's like the fact that we can talk of stagnant energy is like in a forest. Like, would the forest call any of the water stagnant, or would it call it like a mosquito city? Like, you know?
Yeah, a colony, a habitat, a home.
Right, right. So it's
Yeah.
it's almost like enlarging your mental image of the container that you are, so that like the stagnant energy is like, yes, yes to a little bit of stagnant energy. Yep, we need some of that. Like check. And then like also some like super energetic energy, and then like also some super restful energy. Like, yeah, that ecology. I love that word.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and like, yeah, it just feels like yes to energy expenditure, and what else might it look like, and like yes to resistance, and what else might that look like. Like what other than fighting might that look like?
Good question. Yeah, I think of like these projects of like energy expenditure towards creating like fields of like healthy nourishment, and that being the thing that breaks people out of the fighting mode that creates like dominance and those types of things, and that sort of that's that as an act of resistance in itself is like
Mhm.
creating like non-transactional forms and abundant forms of like, here's how we create like safe non-addictive nourishment between people, and it's like it's actually this abundant resource, it's right here, it's here all the time. We just need to like build healthy connection and artful embodiment and stuff like
Yeah. Yeah, it's like being safe instead of being protected.
that. Being safe instead of being protected, I like
Like
that.
you're being the world that is free of threat. And part of being the world that is free of threat is again like expanding that container of like how you're defining yourself. Because like, you know, and we talk about like, oh, the world is under threat. Like the globe itself, no, not. Like our habitat, sure, I'll take that. But like that's what I mean by like expanding the context. It's like when we think of the world as a habitat for humans, it could be threatened, right? But when we think about the world as like molecules or atoms, cannot be threatened, right?
No, no, no. It'll, eventually with like the heat death of the sun, but
And then what happens to the molecules and atoms? Like they still
they're still there.
exactly.
It can't be created or destroyed.
Yeah, can't be threatened.
Only transformed in some ways. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm. Wow, this is beautiful.
Right, right.
I've loved the amount of silence on this one, this call.
Anytime. So it's just, I'm pretty good at silence.
My mom used to say, silence is often misunderstood, but it is never misquoted.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Some wisdom, Mom.
She's a good one. Oof. Do you feel complete?
I feel complete.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This has been so beautiful.
Agreed. Agreed.